So I'm Georgie Nickram, the Capacity Building Program Manager here at Best Starts for Kids. I use she, her pronouns. And co-hosting with me today is Sarah J. Sanford.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah J. I'm on the Best Starts for Kids data and evaluation team.
And by the way, I just wanted to let you know that we are recording this presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. And let's get rolling. So welcome again to the session on technical assistance. And first, I'll just jump in and talk about what technical assistance is. It can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but here at Best Starts for Kids, we're defining technical assistance as help with Best Starts for Kids funding proposals. So TA providers will support community-based organizations in applying for BSK funds. Best Starts is contracting with experienced and equity-focused consultants to be TA providers who will provide free, culturally responsive assistance for applicants to support their proposal development and submission of BSK grant applications. There will be multilingual support available. So I think I'll admit another person. Okay, and let me give you a few examples of what technical assistance is. TA, as we call it, can come in many forms depending on the needs of your organization. So some examples of technical assistance are that Best Starts TA providers can help you determine if your organization or program is a good fit for a particular RFP. They can help you think through your suitability for it. They can also help guide you through the logistics of the application process. For example, they can help ensure that you have all the requirements for a complete application. And they can help you navigate our online grant application platform, which is called Zoom Grants. And then they can also help you tell your story in a clear way. They can support you in authentically sharing your stories of success and impact. TA providers can also help you find data to make your story more compelling. And they can help make sure that you're fully answering the questions on the application. They can review your drafts of the proposal and make suggestions. So while TA providers can provide you support in many different ways, and you don't have to go through all of them, you can choose the ones that are important to you. They're not going to sit down and write the application for you. Technical assistance is not grant writing. So why is Best Starts for Kids offering technical assistance? Well, Best Starts strives to partner with organizations that serve and are led by their own communities. We know that community-led organizations are best positioned to design programs that will have positive impacts on children, youth, and families in their communities. Best Starts recognizes that many organizations and those they serve have historically experienced barriers to accessing funding opportunities from government agencies such as King County. So to address this, Best Starts provides technical assistance to remove many linguistic, cultural, and procedural barriers that we can to prevent that may prevent qualified organizations from seeking Best Starts funding. So TA is a tool to break down barriers to receiving county funding. And TA is also a step toward equity in the application process. TA is there to support organizations who may not have grant writers on staff or funding to hire a grant writer. All right, so let's talk about who's eligible to get TA. Really, any community-based organization interested in applying for Best Starts funding is eligible for technical assistance. If you work at a larger nonprofit that has paid grant writers on staff or a large development team, TA is not really meant for you. King County's focus is on providing resources and strengthening assets and capabilities of smaller community-based organizations so they can effectively and equitably apply for Best Starts funding opportunities. If larger organizations have questions about the RFP, it's certainly fine to consult with a TA provider. They will help you, but you might simply get answers that you need from the procurement manager at King County who released the RFP. So that's one way. Or you might get answers from the frequently asked questions document or FAQ. I'm going to talk more about the FAQ really soon. Okay, so how do you access TA if you're interested in it? We think it's great that you're interested in it. We really encourage everyone to look into it if they need it. We will publish the names of the TA providers in the next few weeks. And when you're ready to apply for an RFP, you will contact the TA provider that you want directly. You won't go through King County. You'll be able to find their names and contact information in at least two places. There will be a blog post that Best Starts for Kids will publish about TA providers. So you'll see it there. And then each Best Starts RFP will have a link to find the TA provider's contact information. So once an RFP opens, you can read the bios of the TA providers and choose one who seems like they would be a good fit for your organization. And be sure to reach out early in the process. You can contact the provider by phone or by email. And you should give the TA provider 24 hours to respond before reaching out to another provider. Be sure to work only with one provider at a time. And the provider will schedule time to meet to talk about your needs. And if the fit doesn't seem quite right, you can let the provider know and then reach out to a new one. But if you need to do that, be sure to tell the first provider that you'd like to end your engagement with them before moving on to a new provider. And then the last thing to add is that be sure to reach out to someone at least 2 to 3 days before that RFP closes so that they have time to help you. So the frequently asked questions document, which I mentioned earlier, is a document that the Best Start staff starts creating as soon as they release an RFP. So as people ask questions, Best Starts as a government agency is required to make sure that everyone gets the same answers. So the way we ensure that everyone is getting the same information is we publicly publish the FAQ several different times during the application period as questions come in. So if you email a question to the RFP coordinator will add your questions to the FAQ with an answer and then upload it into Zoom Grants. Any questions that you have, be sure to read the FAQ, and a lot of the answers may be there. And keep checking back to read the most recently uploaded version of the FAQ because new versions will have new information in them. All right, I have given you a bunch of information, so I'm going to pause right here to answer any questions that might be bubbling up about technical assistance. Does anyone have a question that I can answer? You can take yourself off mute and ask those now. And then we're going to move on to another section that Sarah J is going to talk about in a few minutes.
Feel free to put your questions in the chat as well. And I did just want to remind everybody, because we've had a few folks trickling in, if you prefer to hear this session in Spanish, you can access Spanish interpretation by clicking on the language button in the bottom of your screen and choosing Spanish. Georgie, it looks like we have a question in the chat. Just to clarify, have any BSK RFPs been released yet?
No, there was an RFQ released to find those TA providers and capacity builders that we needed, the consultants, and that RFQ has passed, but no Best Starts for Kids RFPs have been released yet. We do expect a few to be released within the next few weeks.
I'm going to put a link in the chat where you can see a calendar of upcoming funding opportunities, and that will give you a sense of what funding opportunities are being planned for what times for the next year or two. There's another question in the chat, Georgie. Where is Zoom Grants?
You can go to zoomgrants.com. And it would be a good idea if you're interested in applying for Best Starts funding to set up your Zoom Grants account early. So get that part out of the way. It's an online platform that King County has been using to organize all of our grant making. So instead of the old way of writing grants and submitting them by email or by mail, we are just using Zoom Grants. So you'll be typing right into that platform and then also uploading any attachments that you need right into Zoom Grants. So if you go into zoomgrants.com, it'll walk you right through creating an account. And one thing I think that is important to remember is that the person who creates that account, that email address is the only one who's considered the owner of that account. And they need to make other people collaborators in order for those people to be able to access that same application. And let me know if that doesn't make sense.
We've got a couple more questions coming in, Georgie. One person says, in our organization, we have a fund developer position, but all managers are responsible for writing the grants for their program. As a manager, do I qualify for TA?
Yes, I mean, everyone qualifies for TA. The TA providers are going to take a look at really large organizations that have multi-million-dollar organizational budgets, and they might prioritize the smaller organizations that TA is really focused on. So they might prioritize their time. But if the TA provider has the time to help a larger organization, they certainly will.
Yeah, and I think based on past experiences, everybody can count on getting some support from a TA provider. It just might, they will give the level of support that an organization may need, and a large experienced organization might need a lot less. We have another question. Can you speak more on who the folks are providing TA? Do they have training working with LGBTQ plus, BIPOC-led or staffed orgs or other populations that might approach the grant application and submission process through a different lens? Great question.
That is a great question. And yes, the answer is that we were looking and identifying TA providers who would be able to serve all different kinds of organizations here in King County, and definitely have an equity framework. That was very important to us at Best Starts for Kids. And we're going to be providing little bios about each of them so that you can read about their past work and try to match up with a TA provider who's right for you.
I noticed in registration that many folks here today learned about this session on the Best Starts for Kids blogs. So if you're interested in learning more about who the TA providers are going to be, keep your eye on the blog and it'll be announced who specifically they will be pretty soon. Any more questions before we go into the next part of our presentation? Again, please feel free to come off of mute or type into chat. Somebody, TA providers, just would like to know what it stands for. A little late. Georgie?
Sure. So TA provider stands for Technical Assistance Provider, and technical assistance is what we call assistance with applying for Best Starts for Kids funding. So a TA provider is a consultant who we have partnered with, and we are training in what kind of RFPs, the request for proposals that we are putting out. So TA providers will be really knowledgeable about how to apply for our RFPs. They are often people who have worked in nonprofits themselves as grant writers and fund developers. And so they really understand what organizations need in order to apply for a big government public funding opportunity. All right, well, we are going to have another question and answer session at the end of Sarah J's information about data. So I'm going to move this on to Sarah J's part.
Oh, and I do see one more question. Where will we be able to find today's recording? Great question. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be posted, but it will definitely be linked on the Best Starts for Kids blog, and we can send out an email to the folks who registered with the link and with the slides if you're interested as well. All right, so again, we'll have some more Q&A time in a few minutes, but I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking a little bit about one aspect of working on your application that can be challenging for some folks, incorporating data and evaluation. The principles guiding the Best Starts for Kids data and evaluation team are partnership, collaboration, and accessibility, and we aspire that you'll see these values reflected in our work together. So again, today I'm just going to share some tips for thinking about how you may want to incorporate data into a proposal for Best Starts for Kids. Next slide, Georgie. If you're applying for Best Starts for Kids funding, when you think about your proposal, it may be helpful to think about identifying the story that you want to tell. What is a powerful story about your organization, program, or community that shows why your proposal can make a difference? And if you approach your proposal like a story, it can help you decide what kinds of information to include. And when reviewers read it, they'll be able to get a clear picture of what it is you hope to do. So we listed a couple steps here: identifying your story, deciding what information will make it convincing for reviewers, and then finding the information that you're looking for. And there's a reason we put it in this order. There's a lot of data out there. There's a lot of links that I'm going to have in these slides. And whether you are a person who just loves data and loves digging in, or a person who doesn't love it so much, it's easy to spend a lot of time if you don't know what you're looking for. And I'll say this a few times, but again, with any Best Starts for Kids funding opportunity, be sure to read the RFP or request for proposals carefully, because it will tell you exactly what reviewers are going to be looking for and how your proposal will be rated. And you might see criteria related to understanding equity or disparity issues, filling service gaps, or meeting community needs. These kind of criteria are all places where incorporating some data could be helpful for your proposal. But you will not see a criteria that simply says, did this proposal incorporate data? So, use it where it helps you tell your story and make your case for funding, but you don't need to worry about using data for its own sake. Next slide. So when we say data, Best Starts for Kids values many different kinds of data, including community-generated data. Oftentimes, numbers are the first thing that pop into folks' minds when we say data, but we encourage you to think, broadly and creatively about the different kinds of data and information that can help you tell your story in your proposal. It could be numbers from your organization. It could be numbers about King County or your geographic or racial ethnic community or language community in King County. It could be maps. It also could be stories and pictures that show the impact of the work that you're seeking to fund. Again, when in doubt, review the RFP carefully, and you can work with a technical assistance provider or send any questions to the contact for the RFP. Next slide. All right, so let's say that you have thought about what kind of data you'd like to include in your proposal. Where could you find it? Best Starts for Kids shares a lot of data. And again, we can send out these slides so that the links will be live for you, and I'll drop them in the chat in a few minutes as well. The Best Starts for Kids indicators is often a good starting point if we bring together a lot of data about children and families in King County. So you have a pretty good chance of finding data specific to the program area that you're working on a proposal for there. A couple other good general resources include Communities Count at communitiescount.org. This is a separate website, but it's filled by us at the health department, and it includes basic population data. So if you want to say, like, this is how many people in this group live in this area, Communities Count is a place you could find it. It also has written descriptions of our data. So if you think of yourself as more of a words person than a numbers person, Communities Count could be a good place to start. It's also got links to a ton of other data resources for specific topics like education, housing, all kinds of things. This next link, Community Health Indicators, has data on lots of topics related not just to health, but the social and economic resources that impact communities' ability to be healthy. So if you're looking for things like poverty levels, rent burden, education, and employment. You could also find those things there. Sometimes you might not be able to find what you're looking for specific to King County or your community within King County. And in those cases, state or national data that you can find could be useful as well. And finally, don't forget about your own data. Often your organization has the most powerful information to tell your story for the proposal. So just some closing tips. We value different kinds of data, including stories. Depending on the RFP, you may see links out to specific data sources. These are meant to just make it easier for you to find that data, not to dictate to you what you should include in your proposal. So, think again just about what helps you tell your story, make your case for funding. And a technical assistance provider can absolutely help you find or figure out how or whether to use any data in your proposal. It's one area of many they can support. So a lot of the data I just mentioned is shared on the King County website in dashboards. Some people like them and find them easy to use. Others find them less so. So if you would like, during the Q&A time, I can give a short demonstration of how you might poke around one of those dashboards, so that if you do choose to explore that data, hopefully you'll feel a little bit more comfortable doing so. And if that's something you're interested in, again, you can just let us know during the Q&A. Next slide. So again, with technical assistance and data and evaluation, technical assistance consultants can help you find data. They can help you incorporate it into the storytelling of your proposal. Another question that people sometimes have during the proposal development process is, do I need to include an evaluation plan in my proposal? And the answer to that is that no, evaluation plans are not required as part of any Best Starts for Kids proposals. If you are selected for funding, we will partner with you to develop your evaluation and performance measurement plan. That being said, you should plan that you will need to partner with us on performance measurement and evaluation. So it is helpful in your proposal if you, show that you're thinking about evaluation, and that can include expressing willingness to participate in the reporting and evaluation, and also think about how you might need to budget for those resources. So if you have a program that you're going to be reporting out on, I, having been the nonprofit staff doing that reporting, it takes time. So when you think about like, what kind of staff time do I need to budget for? Think about reporting too. If you need any new equipment or software to participate in reporting, you could think about that for your budget. And again, this is something that technical assistance providers are totally able to help you figure out as well. All right, so that's the end of our slides. We have time now for more questions and answers. And I see that there's one in the chat. Do you know yet how long the window will be between when an RFP is released and when an application is due? There is a standard for that. Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's like 6 or 8 weeks. Georgie, do you know?
Yeah, I think it varies in the different strategies, but 6 weeks, I think, is about average. I think that you'll need to read, that'll be the first thing that you should look for is how long do you have?
Another question, can we get the PowerPoints of this presentation? Yes, I will send out the PowerPoint to the email address of everyone who has registered. So if you got the link but somehow didn't have a different email address than you registered with, go ahead and just drop it in the chat and I will add it to the list. And I'm just going to put in a couple links here as well.
Sarah, excuse me, this is Toya. You mentioned earlier and I was writing, so I forgot exactly what it was. If there was something that we wanted, you were willing to put in you were willing to provide, and I forgot what it was, but it was important, and I didn't get a chance to write it down. But you said if we requested it, that you would provide it. Do you remember what that was?
I'm not sure if anyone else, if that's ringing a bell for others, please do chime in. And just to be clear, any organization applying for Best Arts for Kids funding is eligible for technical assistance. And if there's anything that you need, you can always ask them, and they can either help you get it or ask us if it's something they're not sure about. Georgie, do you add anything to that?
I mean, she may have been referring to the fact that you were going to demonstrate. So we could do that. Unless there are any more questions.
I see one more in the chat. Do you have any feedback from people who have used TA support in the past? I'd love to hear from other organizations about how it supported their process and what they liked and didn't like about it. Okay, and I see also a request to demonstrate. So let me just start by answering that first question. We actually do have feedback about technical assistance. This is when we started offering technical assistance early in Best Arts for Kids. It was one of the first times King County has really done this. So we did a little evaluation project to ask how it was going and how we could do it better. And you can read that on the Best Arts for Kids reports website. I put a link into it here, and we can try to remember to add that link when we send out the slides as well. But if you read through that report, it will give you an idea of what kinds of support organizations got, what worked well, and what were some of like the process improvements that were suggested.
And then Rachel is asking if TA providers get training on each RFP to make sure that they're giving the correct information. And yes, they do. They get an orientation on the RFP so that they understand them.
All right. If there's no more questions, and I realize we're at 9:30, so I will invite anyone that wants to stick around for a short demonstration to do so. If you're ready to head out or you need to move on to the next part of your day, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thanks so much. And let us, either of us, know if you have any questions about technical assistance. Happy to help. Take it away, Sarah J.
All right, let me share my
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.
screen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's see. Georgie, can you see my screen?
I can.
Excellent. Let me try to pull up Zoom so we can see a little bit more in the chat as well. Just to make this interesting, I would love it if anyone wants to speak up or put in the chat, like what's a topic that you might be curious about finding data for? And we can use that as our starting point. What I have here is the Best Arts for Kids Indicators dashboard, which I linked in the chat a few minutes ago.
Food security, says Rachel.
Food security, great question. And I'm actually not sure off the top of my head if that's in Best Arts for Kids Indicators, but we do know where we can find it. So a lot of the information that Best Arts for Kids shares, as I mentioned, is in these dashboards that have a very similar format. So whatever we're looking at, hopefully it'll be helpful when you're looking at King County's data dashboards. So I'm just going to start by giving a brief overview here. You'll see that you can search by a specific area within Best Arts for Kids. So these groups are aligned with Best Arts for Kids strategies. Prenatal to 5, youth to 24, youth and family homelessness prevention, and communities of opportunity. Now I see questions about food security, homelessness, and income as well. So there's a few different ways that you could search this. You can scroll through, you can choose a topic area, and because, as you'll see, this list is pretty long, you might find the search bar helpful as well. One tip for using the search bar is it will only search exactly what you're looking for. So if I put in here, let me see, some language people sometimes use is food insecurity. If I put insecurity in here, I won't find anything because nothing's coming up like that. But if I put in just food, give it to reload here. If I put in food, we might or might not find anything. All right, we're not finding anything. So I'm gonna hop over to the community health indicators. That is, again, one of the resources that was linked, and I happen to know that we do have food insecurity information here. I'm gonna do the same thing, type in food, and we've got a few, oh gosh, sorry. We've got a few different possible options that I saw pop up now that it reloaded. I'm gonna try one more time. So one is overall question about adults who said that the food that they got sometimes or often didn't last and they didn't have money to get more in the last 12 months. And we also have data about how many households are receiving basic food or SNAP benefits. So let's say I'm interested in this one. I can see right here the most recent year of data, but if I click through, there's way, way, way more detailed information available. So for example, I saw a question about looking at income by race and ethnicity. I don't know why this Tableau server needs to keep resetting. That's a little bit irritating, and I apologize. We've been having some issues with our Tableau servers at the county recently. All right, so here you'll find much more detailed information if you click through. And again, the general structure of how these look will be pretty similar whether you're looking at this, the best starts for kids indicators. And oftentimes the first thing that you'll see is a map, and that shows you across King County. And we try to be as detailed in different cities, neighborhoods as we can. In this case, how many adults, what proportion of adults said that they, the food they had ran out and they didn't have enough money to get more. So when I look at this, for example, I can see, wow, this area, the SeaTac Tukwila area, almost a third of folks said that. So that's really, really high. And if I want to look by race and ethnicity, I can click on this demographics tab and see that, oh, I see young people are a little bit more likely to report being food insecure. Can see that there's really big inequities by race and ethnicity in King County around food insecurity. And not surprisingly, really big inequities by income level as well.
Hello, this is Linda Lolovic. At the sound of the tone, please.
Georgie, can you help me? Thanks. I'm going to show a couple other things that folks had questions around. One is income by race and ethnicity, and one is homelessness. So just for the sake of curiosity, I'm going back here to our Best Starts for Kids indicators page. And youth and family homelessness is one of our areas of funding in Best Starts for Kids. So I'm going to see what we have here. We have absenteeism. That's not really a measure of homelessness per se, but we know that it's related to homelessness. We have a number of youth and young adults who are either in school or working. Again, not a measure of homelessness, but we know it's a really useful protective factor. And then youth and family homelessness has their own dashboard. So I'll click through here. And you might find this again. I see that it's not only our server that's having problems. You may see this in other places where if it's not data that we have, we will link out to another resource. And this shows how many households has the homeless system served over time and were they sheltered or unsheltered. Let's see here. We have some resources I know on Communities Count as well, which is another of the resources I listed. And one thing we have is income. So I'm going to click here on income. Let's see. There's a bunch of different options here. I think median household income is the closest to what I see in the chat, which is current annual income by race ethnicity. So I'm going to click on that. One thing I mentioned about Communities Count is it will have a similar dashboard, data dashboard, but it does also have language. So this again can be really helpful. Just some people are more of a word person than a numbers or a chart person. So you can, literally copy directly out of here, or just if you're like, I think this is what I see in the chart. Is that true? The words here can help you figure it out as well. So when I look at this page, median household income in King County. Wow, our server is absolutely on fritz here. We do have that data by race, ethnicity, and you can see that there's pretty big disparities here as well. And one thing I want to point out is when you're looking at the charts or the maps on these dashboards, if you hover over a data point or a geographic area, you'll see this little blurb pop up. And usually that blurb has like a sentence. It puts that number into a sentence, and that can help you understand or check your understanding as well. So here, for example, I'm hovering over race, multiple race, and the number I see is $80,414. And this sentence tells me the median household income among households headed by someone who is multiple race was $80,414. This is lower than the King County average. So it will tell you like, what is this number that I'm looking at? And is this, higher or lower than overall for King County? So I feel like we just looked at a lot of different numbers. I hope this was a little bit useful. If you felt like, wow, I don't want to have to deal with that, it's a great thing to reach out to technical assistance providers about. And I'm happy to stay if there's any more questions people have about technical assistance, about using these dashboards, about finding data for a specific topic. And I see a question here as well. I see an awards made section of the dashboard, but not a place where specific programs or proposals are described with detail. Is there a place to find that level of detail? If you're looking for specific programs that each awardee is working on, there is a little bit more detail often in the blog posts that announce awards. So each time, an RFP opens, awardees are selected, and then we'll post on the blog a little bit about those. You can also look at the annual report, but most of the information you'll find in the annual report is about the program level as a whole for multiple awardees, not awardee by awardee. Georgie, do you have any other resources you would recommend to answer that question?
Yeah, I was just looking at the Best Starts for Kids general website and trying to find a good definition. I think that this is probably the best page to go to, Maria, where we're talking about Best Starts for Kids. And then if you scroll down, you can click on investing in early prenatal to 5. You can click on sustaining the gain, which is our youth 5 through 24 area of funding. And then the other childcare, preventing homelessness, communities matter, capital projects. These are all things that Best Starts for Kids in its new levy is supporting.
Great. Oh, I think you might have sent that link to me in the chat, not to everybody, Georgie.
Ah, you're right. Let me just send that to everyone.
I will add too that if you really want to look at the outcome measures that we have for everybody, those are in the annual report and also in an online dashboard. So this is the data not about, how are things going in King County, but specifically like what have our Best Starts for Kids funded partners been doing.
All right, well, we're past time. Thank you so much for sticking with us through this demonstration. That was terrific, Sarah J. Thank you, everyone, and we hope that you all feel encouraged to reach out for a technical assistance provider and reach out to us if you have any other questions.
yeah, as I said, we'll be emailing everybody to make sure you have access to the slides and a link. So you will have our contact information that way.
Have a great day, everyone.